Hi there, welcome to Matrix Live, Season 10, Episode 17.
It's been a long time.
It has been ages since we've done one of these. Welcome if you've been tuning in for the first time to see me and Amandine continuing to push the boulder of Matrix uphill in what can only be described as a Sisyphean mission. At least I think that's the correct terminology.
Probably. But things are still happening.
Yeah, very much so.
Moving positively in the right direction.
Yeah.
So that's good. So, news. What news do we have? We have one big event coming up on the March the 17th. No, it's not St. Patrick's Day,
not.
Even if we can celebrate with lots of Guinness.
Is March 17th St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
Really?
Can't believe I know this and not you.
I'm not Irish.
Yeah, I know.
You may not be Irish either.
Hopefully no one is going to be...
Yeah, sorry. I should know that. Apologise to anybody in Ireland who was scandalised to discover I have no idea. I also don't know when like St. David's Day and St. George's Day and St. Andrew's Day are either. It's probably me just being a dysfunctional human being. Anyway, on March the 17th at the earliest, but it's definitely going to slip, we are hoping to, at last, put OpenID Connect on matrix.org. So the thing blocking this right now is purely the matrix spec review process that needs to go into MSC 3862, if I remember correctly, and the about 8 dependencies it has, which is replacing Matrix's crufty, crap old authentication system with shiny, beautiful new OpenID Connect standards-based authentication. This has been literally 4 years in the making. Poor old Compton has been hacking away at this in absolutely epic fashion, going and building out Matrix authentication service as this beautiful Rust OpenID-C identity provider integrated with Synapse and other home servers so that one can use shiny modern auth APIs in Matrix. And it's all there, it's ready to go. There's a super fast migrator that is written that migrates the whole thing in like a quarter of an hour for all 50 million accounts or whatever it is on matrix.org. But we don't want to flip the switch until the MSCs are on track to actually be in the spec. So I, at this moment right now, have about 16 tabs open in a browser window as I wade through this, going and reviewing it. Yeah, I could just go and hit approve everywhere, but I'm a responsible adult, contrary to popular belief, and I'm actually going to read it all and double check that it's on track. I know the rest of the spec call email too. But this is going to be the biggest change I think we've ever had in Matrix. I mean, this is the first time that we've basically killed off a huge hunk of the current APIs and replace them with something simpler, provided and defined elsewhere. So it's been so long happening that hopefully everybody is prepared for this. It does provide backwards compatibility to the old APIs, so your existing clients should not break. I think the plan is for at least the legacy Element apps to start really forcibly moving people over to Element X on mobile, and for instance not let you register for accounts unless you're using Element X. That isn't because it's not supported by the OIDC system, but it's just using it as an excuse to push people over to Element X for Element users. And yeah, watch this space. Basically, there will be a blog post on matrix.org about a week in advance once we have the final timeline in place for the MSCs, saying hold on to your horses because at 8 a.m. UK on the morning of March the something, matrix.org will vanish and then reappear a quarter of an hour later in its new beautiful butterfly Matrix 2.0 form. And I guess this is in some ways the beginning of finally shipping and actually solidifying all of the Matrix 2.0 MSCs that have been flying around forever. So super exciting.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Oh, there's a big religious war happening over whether we enable QR codes at the same time, QR login, because one of the really nice things that Mass gives you is QR login. And the problem is that QR login is yet another MSC that is yet to get FCP'd and should be provided as an experimental feature, or is that bad hygiene and will it promptly become a dependency despite not being in the spec? watch this space to see how that particular holy war resolves.
Because the MSC is not advanced enough to be finalized by then.
It is, honestly, it could be, but it's adding yet another dependency into the mix. So do we wait and get it stable before turning it on, or do we say, well, it's experimental, we can back it out, it's optional, it's additive, and let's turn it on anyway, a bit like we have for MatrixRTC for element cool or sliding sync. Either way, it may or may not ship with QR login enabled. I hope it does though, because QR login is magical and makes me smile every time I use it, and it would be so nice to finally ship it to everybody on matrix.org.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Speaking of MatrixRTC, there are a few changes in element call coming up.
Yeah, so we've got 0.8 release on the horizon. I think it's in the second release candidate. So element call has been in a bit of a iteration phase over the last couple of months, but there is a major release on the horizon. Aside from all the stability fixes coming up, probably a big thing is that we're splitting the deployment. In fact, we've already split the deployment, I think, between the core.element.io instance and one that will be tied to the matrix.org server. And the matrix.org server instance is going to be sponsored by our good friends at LiveKit. So we're completely blowing the embargo here to tell people.
I was thinking about it, that we haven't put the blog post out yet. So.
Yeah, so basically we've got a really fun sponsorship, membership of the foundation happening, where LiveKit, who make the selective forwarding unit conferencing server thing that powers MatrixRTC, at least currently, is giving access to the Matrix Foundation for a matrix.org instance sponsored by them, which is very much appreciated indeed in terms of reducing the running costs on the foundation side. Yeah. And at the same time, Element is going to be using core.element.io on an Element run 1, so we basically have a clear separation between Foundation and Element there. Also, Element is no longer going to be providing a free-for-all one for the entire internet as it is today, because it is costing way too much. And instead, if you look at this Week in Matrix, you will see Florian, responsible for Element Call, giving excellent instructions on how to run your own LiveKit server, so that if your VoIP calls suddenly break because you can no longer use the one from Element for free, then at least you can run your own.
Cool. Exciting. Decentralization for the win. Cool. What else? Element X, I guess, have some news.
Thank you for interviewing me on this, Amandine. I'll get my revenge in a minute and interview on all of your stuff. Element X, there is a hell of a lot of stuff happening. Again, if you look at This Week in Matrix, you will see Yvonne's massive update from matrix-rust-sdk. This might be the longest twim entry we've ever seen, where Yvonne has got far too overexcited on the endgame of the event cache. So this project, again, has been a year in the making to go and put a persistent SQLite event cache layer into matrix-rust-sdk that is the platonic ideal of a offline and accelerated cache for all of your Matrix conversations. So it basically gives you full offline access. It gives you instant access to image galleries at last, which we've been waiting literally 10 years for, in terms of being able to get an instant grid of all of the media posted into a room. It speeds up launch time, it speeds up load time, and it does everything but make you coffee and give you hugs. So that is now turned on by default in the latest release candidates. It hasn't been released yet. There have been lots of fun bugs, as is always the case with caching stuff. But we're in the end game there. Also related to that has been improving the push extension in Element X iOS, where you get a whole 24 megabytes of memory to play with. And I went off on a random mission last night to profile mine to find out why it just no longer runs and I don't get push. And it turns out that there are various memory optimizations that we can do there to make push more reliable. So that is coming real soon now. Then other stuff on the application layer, we finally, wait for it, have the ability to join rooms.
About time.
So this is a point of some contention because whilst one might think the ability to join rooms by a room alias would be an obvious thing to do, if you're in an organization that operates purely on room directories or space hierarchies and things, you might not need to do it that often. Either way, Element X has now finally got proper user interface on both iOS and Android, I believe, when you hit the plus button to let you enter a room name in order to join it. So that's good. Then relatedly, we also, I think, have pills, so little lozenges in the UI to show room names nicely, as well as autocomplete them if you hit a hash. Although I haven't managed to make that work yet. You tried that?
No, I didn't know. I'll check.
Yeah, it's meant to be something there.
Okay.
Right. That is it for me enthusing about Element Cool and Element X and Mass. Amandine, what's happening for you?
What's happening on my side? Well, you've seen all the various blog posts trying to raise money for the foundation, making sure it can still act as a good custodian of the standard, making sure it's here as a neutral body to guardian the spec core team, make sure that we actually get nice Matrix Live and a nice website and this sort of things. And all of these also sponsoring all the trust and safety work, which is useful for everyone in the ecosystem and absolutely necessary. And all of these needs to be paid for, and that's why we had introduced the membership program. So we've been trying to ramp up the number of members joining the foundation, and thank you everyone who is actually donating and being a member of the foundation. But this needs to accelerate because the rate of growth is not fast enough. So I will be taking my guardian hat and putting it on a bit more permanently and spending much more of my time actually working with Robin and Tib, helping them grow the revenue from that front for the foundation and raising funds and adding members to our governing board and not to the governing board but to the adding members to the foundation. So expect to see me around if you are actually using Matrix. And somewhere I will be coming and knocking at your door and say, you know, this project that you love so much, well, it is in need of your help. So please come join us and become a member. So yeah, I'm stepping up in that role and spending much more of my time in the foundation side.
It's pretty exciting, really,
Yep.
In terms of also potentially opening up new avenues for the foundation to do interesting stuff to benefit Matrix as a whole. Because I think part of the trouble of the memberships right now is that trust and safety is critical, but kind of invisible, and people take it for granted and complain bitterly when it doesn't work as well as it could do, but also is expensive in terms of having people working on it full time. And then we've also got things like the open governance work and just making sure that the spec process is robust and all of the stuff there. It's all fairly sort of invisible but important. And I think it could be really interesting to see what else the foundation can do that people would be happy to put their money behind. Because the naive thing is that people say, I want custom emoji, or I want whatever missing feature from their favorite Matrix client, and that's not really something the foundation can help with. So I think we need to find more ways where people are willing to put money behind the bar.
Yeah, basically, the role is really making sure it's an independent body. We want every member of the ecosystem to be able to participate, to have a voice, and to grow. And so that's where we need to put our efforts. As Matthew says, trust and safety is the only place where the foundation is actually developing any code, but it's something which is required by the entirety of the ecosystem. So we really need to continue to grow that part. And we could even imagine putting more effort behind the spec core team if we had more money and this sort of things.
Yeah, that would be amazing. There are a couple of interesting projects which are being thrown around, which obviously we won't talk about now because Amandine will literally stab me in the neck with this paper knife, or oyster knife even. Watch this space to see what happens there. I mean, and I guess part of that has also been running around the world trying to shift perception on open source funding in general. We should talk about FOSS Backstage and perhaps even the Open Forum Europe stuff from FOSDEM.
Yeah, basically something we've been trying to step up, where we've tried to step up the effort is definitely making more noise around how do you buy open source. Especially in Europe, because there is a lot of a growth of interest around sovereignty of your tech and people needing to be able to run their own software, not necessarily relying on big clouds across the Atlantic and this sort of things. So there is a lot of interest coming up into this area. But we still have the issues that companies who actually want to use open source software still don't necessarily fund it the right way. So we have been at FOSS Backstage in Berlin this week, where we've been discussing that with various players. There was the European EU Open Source Policy Summit before FOSDEM, organized by OFE, where same thing, we've been discussing this on different panels, and there are a few initiatives where we're really stepping up and working with others to make our voice heard at the higher levels, especially in Europe, for better funding. And basically the pitch there is very much that if you're using an open source project and you want to make sure it's secure, which gets entangled with the Cyber Resiliency Act from the EU, which is mandating basically developers to make sure that their project is secure if it's used in the final product, which can be quite complicated in the open source world, then the idea is, okay, you want to use open source technology, you want to make sure it's secure, then how do you give the project the means to actually fund the right team and the right resources to ensure this security and this polish? If you want people to move away from proprietary software which are not in the country you are in, then how do you make sure the project you want to use actually have the resources to build a polish user experience which can compete? So that's the kind of things we've been talking about in the last few months.
Indeed, and we had a really fun conversation at FOSS Backstage with Alistair, who's on the board of the Erlang Foundation. And turns out the Erlang Foundation has very similar problems to the Matrix Foundation, and we were conspiring and comparing notes on how one can try to solve this eternal problem of open source funding. I don't know, it feels like we might have critical mass, and also the fact that the zeitgeist and the governments are actually trying to help on this may mean that this challenge finally makes some progress.
Which takes us directly into basically one of the discussion we wanted to mention, one article which came up this week in Germany.
So on FOSDEM, on the main stage, I ranted about the perils of free riding, and the whole issue that you can end up with commercial companies distributing open source software and profiting from it, and then mysteriously forgetting to route any money back to the upstream. And it's something that we see so much happening in the Matrix ecosystem, impacting all of the Matrix vendors who actually build the software, whether that is Element or Nordeck or Connect2X. I'm sure they famously also have Freeriding problems. And one of the things that we've been highlighting is that if governments, for instance, who are trying to deploy Matrix somewhere, actually route the money to the upstream project, either directly or indirectly, then the problem goes away. And I mentioned at FOSDEM that we've been starting to talk with various journalists who are really interested in this as a bit of a scandal in some ways, that public sector funding is being misappropriated by middlemen who go and eat everybody's lunch and are bad players. Well, it turns out that one of them published a few days ago in HISA or CT magazine. I would send the link here, except I'm speaking, and also it's paywalled, unfortunately, but hopefully it will emerge from the paywall at some point soon. But if you look for CT and Freeriding, then you'll see a really interesting deep dive into some of the deals which have gone sideways due to this effect. Let's just pray that governments and people who want to use open source actually specify that you need to fund money to the upstream, and then we can stop stressing about money all the bloody time, and we can go back to writing amazing software and trying to make the world a better place for open source. What else is going on?
What else is going on? There is Apple. Yes, there is the Apple drama in the UK, which started 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Probably 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, where basically the UK government has asked Apple to provide a backdoor to their, as it called, APD, the backup, like end-to-end encrypted cloud backup.
Yep.
ADP,
ADP, yeah. Advanced data protection.
And Apple said no and disabled the feature for UK citizens.
I haven't actually tried to see what happens. I don't have it enabled here, but there's no way I would use iCloud in the first place. But I wonder what happens if I actually go and look for it. Well, it doesn't come up in search at all now. Oh yeah, there we go. Advanced data protections. And it says Apple can no longer offer advanced data protection in the UK, which is unfortunate to say the least.
But there have been today, or was it a couple of days ago, there was a bit of an update on that.
Yes, so basically Apple has now formally challenged the UK government over this and requested what's called an investigatory powers tribunal, which is basically a legal hearing where they challenge the technical capability notice that has been served to go and backdoor, which is great news. We're trying to figure out whether Element, who must be the biggest end-to-end encrypted communication company in the UK now, whether we can feed into that process. I think the tribunal itself is closed door, but we're investigating ways in which we can chip in and say, by the way, if you need an independent private expert to go and point out that encryption is a good thing and backdooring end-to-end encryption is a bad thing, and here are the reasons why, then we can help make that case. So we'll see whether we end up participating somehow in that or not. Unfortunately, I think the chances of the tribunal being public are nil, but at least we can try to feed in. So there's that, and I ended up on the national news for a whole 12 seconds a few Fridays ago in order to tell everybody that this is a bad idea and that the UK is shooting itself in the foot and thereby achieving a childhood fantasy of being on the news at 10, or not. And then finally, the only other thing I wanted to talk about was State Res v Free, because as astute people will have noticed from some of the blurbling at FOSS, we are working on a next generation of the state resolution algorithm that powers the decentralized state replication and merge conflict resolution algorithm in Matrix. And this is looking super promising now. It's been done in private because it has security implications, but I think I saw the final tests being implemented of the implementations to prove that the new one works. And so there's going to be some MSC polishing and review, and then we're going to have to figure out a disclosure process in order to roll out new state res. But we'll give more details as that lands over the coming weeks, but be aware that if you implement Matrix servers, you are going to have a new room version on the horizon with different semantics, which will hopefully solve all state resets known to man, and also even vaguely prove that we will have killed them off forever, which will be a bit of a win. Not only have we killed unable to decrypt errors, pretty much, you'll finally kill state resets, and after only 10 years, we might actually have a protocol that works. High five! Oh, that was
Missed.
awful.
Because
awful.
there was the
Come
wrong
on, there we
hand.
go. Much
Yeah.
better, yeah. Ugh, can't get the stuff. Right. Anything else?
No, I think that's about it.
Cool. Thanks for listening to us drone away. Have an amazing weekend wherever you are. Thank you for flying Matrix. And yeah, see you. Hopefully, it's been
Soon.
ages. It's probably a year since we've done one of these.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe something like this.
Okay, well, if
Given how much we've drawn around funding and public policy and this sort of things, maybe people are happier talking about tech, but it makes for a change sometimes. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, no, we talked about tech a bunch.
Yes.
Anyway, if MTR Nord and T-Bone people let us back, then you'll get another Matrix live from us sometime soon.
Cool.
See
Thank
ya.
you. Bye, everyone.